Hey everybody, Dave Brown here from Okuma Fishing Tackle. In this week's Tune Up Tuesday, I'm going to talk about gear ratio and line retrieve. So you've probably heard the terms gear ratio and line retrieve when referring to fishing reels. They come in a variety of gear ratios. You might hear 5.2 to 1, 5.8 to 1, 6.1, 7.2, 8.1. There's a variety of gear ratios. So when you're talking about gear ratio, what that is how fast, every time you turn that handle of the reel, how much line you're gonna put onto your reel. So if you do a 6.2 to 1, every time you make one crank of that handle, your line is actually going to be spun around the spool 6.2 times every one turn of the handle. Now what that translates to in line retrieve, the faster, the higher speed gear ratio you have, the more line you're going to put on your reel. This happens to be an Azor 6000. It's got a 5.8 to 1 gear ratio, and every time you turn that handle, you're putting on almost 3 feet of line. So to put that in perspective, if you're making a long cast, every one crank of that handle, you're gonna bring 3 feet of line back to you. 2 cranks, you're bringing in 6 feet. So every time you throw it out there and every time you crank it, you're bringing in almost 3 feet of line. Now, if you're deep dropping, maybe you're in Southern California, you're dropping down for yellowtail, you've heard of the term like a knife jig or yo-yo jig. You'll see that there's fish, the captain says drop down to 80 feet. You're in 100 feet of water. You know those fish are gonna be about 20 to 30 feet from the bottom on up. Drop down to the bottom. Every time you crank that, you're gonna get 3 feet of line. So if you give 10 cranks, you're actually bringing that thing up 30 feet off of the bottom. Drop back down and keep doing that over. That's just a basic overview of gear ratio and line retrieve. For more tips, tricks, and techniques, make sure you visit okumafishingusa.com.